My friends laughed because I didn't order food, until the bill came and they insisted I split it. Stay with me through this story, because it's one I'll never forget, and maybe you won't either. Hannah Mercer had always been careful with money. At 28, working as a bookkeeper, she knew every cent mattered. Growing up in a working-class family had taught her that nothing came easy. Just last month, she'd helped her dad pay off a chunk of his medical bills and covered her own moving expenses. Her bank account was tight, but she was managing. When she got a group text from her old college friends, Tessa Vaughn, Olivia Pratt, Dylan Reese, and Mark Callahan, inviting her to dinner, she hesitated. She loved catching up with them, but she knew dinners out with this group often meant expensive bills. Still, she hadn't seen them in a while, and she didn't want to be the one who always said no. She told herself she could go and still stick to her budget. She'd just order something small, enjoy the company, and leave without spending much. So that evening, she walked into the cozy Italian restaurant with a smile, gave everyone a hug, and sat down. The menus were full of tempting dishes, but Hannah stayed focused. She ordered only a small iced tea, figuring it was polite to have at least one drink. The others, though, went all in, ordering appetizers, ribeye steaks, cocktails, and desserts without a second thought. Between bites of bruschetta, Tessa smirked and said, "Han, you're not eating? Are you on some kind of diet?" Dylan chuckled. She's being boring again. Remember last time? Just soup and water. Hannah laughed softly, waving it off. "I'm just not that hungry," she said. Inside, she felt a little embarrassed, but she reminded herself that her choice was about being responsible, not about fitting in. The table was lively. Stories about work drama, weekend trips, and dating updates flew back and forth. Hannah enjoyed listening, sipping her iced tea, and feeling glad she'd come out despite her worries. For most of the night, she felt comfortable, almost forgetting about her tight budget. Then the server dropped the bill in the center of the table. Hannah's stomach sank when she saw the total, $320. Tessa picked it up and, without missing a beat, said, "Let's just split it evenly. Makes life easier." Hannah blinked. I only had the tea." Dylan rolled his eyes. "Don't be that person, Han. We're friends. We share." Olivia gave her a little shrug, like this was how things always worked. Mark leaned back in his chair and said, "Yeah, it's not a big deal." Hannah felt heat rise in her face. She didn't want to make a scene, and arguing would only drag things out. So, without another word, she pulled out her card and paid her $64 share, nearly the cost of a week's groceries for her. She smiled faintly, but inside something shifted. This wasn't just about one dinner. This was about years of being the easy friend, the one they could lean on or take from without thinking twice. And for the first time, she felt the weight of it. The server returned to the table carrying the black leather folder. She set it gently in the center, almost like she knew what it contained would change the mood. Hannah didn't need to guess what the number inside would look like. She'd been watching the plates pile up all night. The laughter and clinking glasses had been constant as her friends ordered appetizer after appetizer, ribeye steaks cooked to perfection, and more cocktails than she could count. They'd even finished with rich chocolate cake and creme brulee. Tessa was the first to grab the bill. She flipped it open, her eyebrows lifting for just a second before she smiled. "All right," she said casually. "Let's just split it evenly. Makes life easier." Hannah's fingers tightened around her glass. Evenly? She'd had one small iced tea. Not even a refill. She leaned forward a little, trying to keep her voice steady. I didn't really eat anything. Just the tea." Tessa's smile faltered, but only for a moment. "Yeah, but it's easier this way. Less math." Dylan smirked from across the table. "Don't be that person, Han." The way he said it wasn't playful. It was dismissive, like she was already being unreasonable. Olivia, who had barely looked up from her phone, added in a light voice, "Come on, we always do it this way. It's just what friends do." Hannah felt heat crawl up her neck. Her first instinct was to argue, to point out that she hadn't shared in any of the steaks, the endless bottles of wine, or the decadent desserts. But the way they were looking at her made her feel like a child refusing to share toys. She could feel the weight of their judgment pressing on her. She thought about her budget, how carefully she'd been stretching every paycheck, how the next rent payment was already in her head. $64 might not mean much to them, but to her, it was a big dent. It was the cost of gas for the month, or most of a grocery run. Dylan gave a little laugh and nudged Mark, as if the conversation was already over. Tessa set the bill back down, tapping her card against it. "Come on, let's just all put in our share. We'll be out of here in no time." Hannah swallowed hard, forcing a small smile. She didn't want to be the reason the night ended awkward. Without another word, she reached for her wallet and slid her card onto the table. As they waited for the server to return, the conversation picked back up like nothing had happened. Hannah nodded and smiled at the right moments, but her mind was elsewhere. The iced tea in front of her was watered down now, the ice melted into a pale swirl. When the receipt came back, she signed her name quickly, folding it without looking at the total again. But deep down, she knew something had shifted. It wasn't about the $64. It was about the quiet humiliation of being cornered, the realization that these people she'd called friends didn't see her the way she saw them. And though she didn't say it out loud, a small voice in her mind whispered, never again. On the ride home that night, Hannah replayed the dinner over and over in her head. The laughter, the teasing, the way Dylan's smirk lingered when he told her not to be that person. At first, she told herself maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. Friends split bills all the time. But then, like a slow trickle turning into a flood, memories began to surface. There was the time she'd bought everyone concert tickets months in advance because it's easier if one person books it. Tessa had promised, "We'll all pay you back right after payday." 2 of them did. The other 2, well, they forgot. She'd brought it up once, awkwardly, and gotten vague excuses, something about a lost wallet, an unexpected bill, and, "Oh, I'll send it to you next week." The money never came. Then there was that weekend trip a couple years back. They'd all been at the grocery store stocking up, and somehow she ended up paying for half the cart. "We'll even it out later," Dylan had said. Later never came. She remembered standing in her kitchen afterward, looking at her bank account and realizing that her share had been twice what it should have been. The more she thought about it, the more it was clear. This wasn't a one-time misunderstanding. This was a pattern. They'd been doing it for years, little by little, dressing it up as friendship. And she had gone along with it, because she hated conflict, because she thought being the easygoing friend made her good company. But now, all she felt was used. Over the next few weeks, Hannah started to step back. She didn't rush to reply in the group chat. She turned down casual hangouts, claiming she was busy with work. When she did see them, she kept her wallet closed, avoiding situations where she could be cornered into paying. It didn't take long for someone to notice. One evening, her phone buzzed with a message from Tessa. "Hey, hope we're cool? You've been kind of distant lately." Hannah stared at the screen for a long moment. Part of her wanted to lay it all out, every unpaid debt, every time they'd taken advantage of her. But she knew how that would go. They'd brush it off, turn it into a joke, or worse, make her feel like she was overreacting. So she typed back something polite. "Yeah, all good. Just been busy, you know how it is." She hit send and set the phone down. But inside, something had shifted for good. She wasn't going to confront them outright, at least not yet. Instead, she was already imagining ways to step out of this so-called friendship on her own terms. Quietly, without warning. It wasn't about getting even. Not yet. It was about making sure they could never pull her into one of their little splits again. And as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, the beginnings of an idea started to form. This time, she promised herself she'd be ready. A few weeks later, Hannah was home on a quiet Thursday evening when her phone lit up with a message from Tessa. "Hey, we're doing Olivia's birthday dinner this Saturday at that new seafood place downtown. You have to come." Hannah felt her stomach tighten. She knew the place. White tablecloths, glistening lobster tanks, the kind of menu without prices listed. She typed back honestly, "I don't think I can swing it right now. Things are tight." Seconds later, Tessa replied, "Oh, come on. It's Liv's birthday. You can't skip this one." Then Olivia herself chimed in, "It wouldn't be the same without you." Dylan followed with, "You can just get something small. It's about the company, not the food." Hannah sighed. She hated feeling like the difficult one. Against her better judgment, she finally wrote, "All right, I'll be there." But she made herself a promise. She'd order the cheapest thing on the menu and keep the night as low cost as possible. Saturday came, and the restaurant was as fancy as she'd imagined. Dim lighting, soft music, waiters gliding between tables. The group was already at a corner booth, laughing loudly, glasses of wine in hand. Almost immediately, they began ordering bottles of wine, not glasses, bottles. Appetizers followed, crab cakes, shrimp cocktails, oysters on ice. Hannah smiled politely, sipping her water. When the waiter came to her, she ordered just a side salad. "That's all?" he asked, pen hovering over his notepad. "Yes, thank you," she said, trying not to feel self-conscious. The others didn't notice, or maybe they didn't care. Their table filled with lobster platters, buttery scallops, and steaming bowls of chowder. The scent was incredible, but Hannah kept her focus. Hours later, when the dessert menus appeared, Hannah declined again. "None for me," she said. Tessa ordered creme brulee anyway, Mark got cheesecake, and Dylan decided they should all share a plate of truffle. By the time the check arrived, Hannah was almost relieved the night was ending, until she saw the number. Over $500. Tessa reached for the bill with a practiced E. "All right, let's split it evenly again." This time, Hannah didn't stay quiet. "I didn't have any of that. Just a salad and water." Dylan gave a short laugh. "We've been over this, hon. It's what friends do." Mark leaned back, raising an eyebrow. "Wow, you've gotten tight lately." His tone was laced with judgment. like she was being cheap on purpose. Hannah felt the familiar flush of embarrassment, but beneath it was something sharper. She took out her wallet, placed her card on the table, and said nothing. But inside, her decision was made. As she signed the slip later, she didn't feel the usual mix of guilt and frustration. Instead, she felt cold clarity. This would be the last time they'd corner her like this. Walking out into the cool night air, she knew one thing for certain. The next time they tried to use her, she'd be ready. And they wouldn't see it coming. It was a week after Olivia's birthday dinner when the group chat lit up again. This time, it was about their annual weekend getaway, a cozy Vermont cabin in the mountain. Cabin trip next month. Who's in? Tessa had typed, adding a flurry of snowflake emojis. Hannah stared at the message, her mind ticking. She already knew how these trips worked. They'd share costs, which somehow always ended up with her paying more than her fair share. Last year, she'd covered a rental deposit that took 3 months to get back. Another time, she'd bought all the snacks for everyone, only to end up eating almost none of them. She almost typed "I can't make it," but then paused. An idea began to take shape, slow at first, then sharper. She could go. She could join in. But this time, she'd make sure the numbers worked in her favor. She pictured herself buying her own groceries, just for her, and not touching a single thing they bought. No shared pizzas, no group wine runs. And if they wanted to split things evenly? Fine. She'd have the receipts to make it sting. Her decision was sealed later that week when she overheard something interesting. She was grabbing coffee before work when her phone buzzed, a call from Tessa. "Hey," Tessa said, lowering her voice. "So, I haven't booked the cabin yet. I was waiting for the price to drop, but now they're asking for full payment up front. My card's almost maxed from Christmas, so I kinda need someone to put it on theirs temporarily. I'll pay them back after the trip." Hannah almost smiled right there in the coffee shop. This was it. The opening she hadn't even dared hope for. "Oh," she said, letting her voice sound casual and sympathetic. "I can do it. No problem. I've got the room on my card." Tessa's relief was instant. "You're a lifesaver. I'll send you the link to book it." Hannah jotted down the total, $1,200 for 3 nights. She booked it that evening without hesitation, already planning how she'd document every expense. Cabin rental, food deliveries, wine orders, even that inevitable "let's get premium snacks" run, it would all be recorded. In the grocery store the week before the trip, she was deliberate. Fresh fruit, granola, bottled water, a few ready-to-eat meals. Nothing fancy, but enough for her to be fully independent. She knew they'd notice, maybe even tease her for not joining their feasts, but she didn't care. This wasn't about fitting in anymore. When she put the booking confirmation in the group chat, Dylan replied with a laughing emoji, and "Hannah's our sugar mama this year." She smiled faintly at the screen. They still thought she was the easy one, the friend who didn't mind picking up the tab. Good. The trap was set. And this time, she'd be the one walking away with the upper hand. The booking went through without a hitch. $1,200 charged to Hannah's credit card for 3 nights in the Vermont cabin. She posted the confirmation in the group chat, and everyone sent cheerful emojis and thanks. Tessa wrote, "We'll settle up after the trip, promise." Mark added, "Easiest way to do it." Hannah replied with a simple thumbs up, but in her head, she was already counting the days. When the weekend arrived, she packed carefully. Her suitcase was light, warm clothes, a book, and her own bag of groceries. She'd thought it through. Pre-made sandwiches, bottled water, fruit, instant oatmeal packets, and a few treats she liked. Nothing that could be claimed as shared food. She wanted no confusion about what was hers. The cabin was beautiful, just as the listing had promised. Wood-paneled walls, a roaring fireplace, and a balcony overlooking the snowy woods. As soon as they arrived, Dylan flopped onto the couch, announcing, "We need to celebrate. Who's in for pizza and wine?" Everyone agreed instantly, except Hannah. "I'm good," she said lightly, holding up her sandwich. "Brought my own food this time." Tessa laughed. "You and your little packed meals." Olivia smirked but said nothing. Soon, the deliveries started rolling in. First, 3 large pizzas and garlic knots. Then, 2 bottles of mid-range wine. The next night, it was takeout from a steakhouse in town, $200 for 4 people, plus delivery fees. On the last evening, Dylan decided they needed to go big and ordered 2 cases of craft beer and gourmet cheese from a specialty shop. Each time, Hannah stayed out of it, eating her own groceries at the table while the others dug in. And each time, she quietly noted the costs in her phone. Pizza, $65. Wine, $40. Steakhouse, $200. Cheese and beer, $95. She even jotted down the $12 delivery fee for firewood that Mark ordered without asking. Once or twice, she mentioned the expenses out loud, just to see their reaction. "That steakhouse delivery was $200, right?" she asked casually on the second night. Dylan waved it off. "We'll figure it out later." On the final morning, as they packed up, Hannah stood in the kitchen sipping her coffee while Tessa was on the phone with her boyfriend. Yeah, Tessa said. Hannah booked it. We're just gonna pay her back once we're home. Her tone was casual, almost dismissive. Hannah smiled to herself. Perfect. No talk of splitting the food separately, no clarification about what was shared. They were assuming it would be the usual, one big total, evenly divided. As they loaded the car, Dylan clapped her on the shoulder. Thanks again for putting it on your card, huh? You're a champ. She nodded, slipping her phone into her pocket. Of course, she said warmly. Inside, she felt the satisfaction of a plan unfolding exactly as she'd imagined. Every number was in place. Every receipt was accounted for. The trap was set, and they were already standing in it. The last night in the cabin started like any other, cold air seeping through the windows, the fire crackling in the living room, and the sound of Dylan's music playlist bouncing off the wooden walls. Hannah sat curled up in an armchair, reading on her phone, when Tessa poked her head into the room. Hey, so, the neighbors from the next cabin are coming over for drinks. They're fun. You'll like them, she said, her cheeks already pink from the wine she'd been drinking. Minutes later, the strangers arrived, arms full of laughter and chatter. Dylan, of course, decided the occasion called for something special. He whipped out the cabin's welcome binder, flipping to the section about add-on services. Look at this. They'll deliver premium bourbon and champagne straight to the door. No driving, no store trip. We have to do it. Mark was all for it. Olivia didn't even ask the price. Tessa waved her hand dismissively and said, Put it on the cabin tab. We'll settle up later. Hannah's lips twitched in a faint smile. She knew cabin tab meant the charges would be added to her booking invoice, the one that was already sitting neatly in her email, ready to be tallied up with everything else. Sure, she said casually. Go ahead. She made a mental note. Premium alcohol delivery, $185 plus tax. She typed it into her phone's expense log before the bottles even arrived. When the champagne popped, the room buzzed with energy. Glasses clinked, music played louder, and conversation spilled over into laughter. Hannah stayed mostly on the edges, sipping her water and watching them loosen up more and more. Somewhere between Dylan's third glass of bourbon and Tessa's fourth refill of champagne, the joke started. Hannah's our sugar mama this weekend, Dylan declared, his words slightly slurred but full of amusement. Tessa giggled, pointing at her. Seriously though, she's funding our mountain getaway. Olivia laughed and Mark added, we should get her a trophy or something. Hannah smiled back, keeping her voice light. Guess I'm just generous like that. They roared with laughter, assuming she was playing along. But inside, she felt a deep, quiet satisfaction. If they only knew how perfectly they were setting themselves up. Every smug little comment, every thoughtless order, all of it was just adding to the total they'd soon see in black and white. Later, when the neighbors left and the fire burned low, Hannah slipped away to her room. She opened her phone and reviewed the list. Cabin rental, food deliveries, wine, beer, steakhouse, premium alcohol. Every cost accounted for, with receipts to match. In the morning, they'd all pack up and head home, still laughing about their sugar mama weekend. And then they'd get the bill. Hannah set her phone on the nightstand, the faint hum of music still drifting from the living room. She closed her eyes with a small, contented smile. They thought they were getting the best of her, but the truth was she'd already won. 2 days after they got home from Vermont, Hannah sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open and a neat pile of receipts beside her. The cabin invoice had arrived in her email earlier that morning, and she'd already matched it against her notes from the trip. She double-checked every number, every charge, cabin rental, takeout orders, wine deliveries, the steakhouse splurge, the premium bourbon and champagne on the last night. When she was done, the total stared back at her, $1,840. She opened the group chat and typed, Hey everyone, here's the breakdown from the trip. She attached a tidy spreadsheet she'd made. Cabin rental, $1,200. Pizza and wine, $105. Steakhouse delivery, $200. Craft beer and cheese, $95. Premium alcohol delivery, $185. Firewood delivery, $12. Total, $1,840. Underneath, she wrote, split evenly, that's $460 each. Please send payment by Friday so I can clear my card. It didn't take long for the first reply. Olivia sent back, got it, sending now. A moment later, Hannah's phone buzzed with a payment notification. Olivia was in the clear. The others weren't so quick. Mark wrote, Wait, you didn't even drink or eat with us most of the time. Shouldn't your share be less? Tessa followed with, Yeah, I mean you just had your little packed meals. Isn't it kind of weird for you to split the whole total? Dylan chimed in, Come on, hon. Be fair. You barely touched any of the food or booze. Hannah read their messages slowly, letting the words sink in. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she typed her reply. It's just what friends do, right? We've always split everything evenly. No exceptions. There was a pause in the chat. No one replied right away. Tessa finally wrote, "This feels different though. You're making it all about money." Hannah's jaw tightened, but her tone stayed calm. "I put the entire trip on my card. Every order, every delivery, it all went through me. We all agreed to settle up after. I'm just asking for the same thing we've done every time before." Mark sent back, "Still $460 is steep." Hannah's next message was short and firm. "Deadline is Friday. If I don't receive payment, I'll have to follow up directly with each of you." She hit send and set her phone down. Her heart was steady. She didn't need to argue or explain further. The numbers spoke for themselves. They'd all been happy to pile on charges when they thought she'd quietly absorb them. Now, for once, they'd see the other side of the deal. By the end of the day, Olivia remained the only one who'd paid. But Hannah wasn't worried. She knew that when Friday came, the rest would have a choice: pay up or face a very different kind of conversation. Either way, this time, she was the one in control. Olivia was the first to pay, and Hannah noticed immediately. Her phone chimed with a notification. Payment received, $460 from Olivia. A small smile crossed Hannah's face. Olivia might have her faults, but when it came to fairness, she always held to her word. Mark, on the other hand, was less cooperative. Almost right after Olivia paid, he messaged, "Look, Hannah, I can't pay the full $460 right now. Can we work out a smaller amount or maybe pay in installments?" Hannah took a deep breath but stayed firm. She replied, "Mark, the amount is what it is. This is what we agreed on. Please pay the full amount by Friday." Mark didn't reply after that, which Hannah took as a silent protest. But she wasn't about to back down. Then Tessa sent a bitter message to the group chat. "It's sad how money changes people. I thought we were friends, but I guess not." The tone was sharp, almost accusing. Hannah read it, feeling a mixture of disappointment and quiet satisfaction. It was clear Tessa felt cornered, but Hannah wasn't about to apologize for standing up for herself. Dylan was the most stubborn. He flat out refused to pay. "No way am I paying for stuff I didn't even use," he messaged. "This isn't fair." Hannah knew she needed to respond carefully. She didn't want to make it personal, but she needed to remind him of the facts. She sent screenshots of their earlier group chat where they had all agreed, explicitly, to split the cabin costs evenly. There was Tessa's message. "Let's just split it evenly, makes life easier." Dylan's own agreement was there too. "Yeah, fair's fair." After that, Dylan's tone shifted. He didn't say much but stopped arguing. A day later, Hannah received a notification. Payment sent, $460 from Dylan. Within the next couple of days, Mark paid as well. No more bargaining, no more excuses. Hannah watched the messages come in one by one. Payment received from Mark, payment received from Dylan. Even Tessa quietly paid without saying a word. Hannah felt a wave of relief mixed with pride. They had all tried to push back, tried to make her the bad guy for asking for what was owed, but she had held her ground. And now they'd all done the right thing. The group chat was silent after that, except for a few awkward messages. Hannah muted the notifications and focused on moving forward. In the quiet after the storm, she realized something important. Standing up for herself wasn't about money alone. It was about respect. It was about no longer letting others take advantage of her kindness. And for once, she had made sure the people around her understood that. Hannah closed her laptop and leaned back. This chapter was over, but she was ready for whatever came next. After the last payment cleared, Hannah felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The whole situation with Tessa, Dylan, and Mark had drained her more than she realized. She decided it was time to cut ties for good. Without hesitation, she blocked all three of them on her phone and social media. No more messages, no more passive-aggressive comments, no more feeling used. Olivia, however, stayed in her contacts. They weren't close anymore, more like distant acquaintances who checked in occasionally. Olivia wasn't perfect, but she had respected Hannah enough to do the right thing when it mattered. That was enough. With the money from the trip repayment sitting safely in her account, Hannah decided to treat herself. She chose a small, cozy restaurant she'd always wanted to try, but never felt she could afford. It felt good to finally indulge without worrying about splitting the bill or hiding behind a tiny iced tea. Sitting alone at the table, she ordered a rich, juicy steak, a creamy pasta, a glass of red wine, and a decadent chocolate dessert. Each bite reminded her that she deserved this, a break from years of stretching every dollar and putting others' needs before her own. As she savored the meal, a calm satisfaction settled in her chest. This was more than just a dinner. It was a quiet victory. A symbol that she was no longer willing to let people take advantage of her kindness or guilt her into unfair situations. Funny thing was, that night, she didn't split the bill with anyone. What do you think about Hannah's decision to finally walk away from those friends? Was cutting them out the right move, or could she have handled it differently? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your take. And if stories like this resonate with you, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new ones.